everyone. So I have to read this one standing up, and you'll see why in a minute. This is my second favorite character. This describes Xenos' dad. He's fun, he's quirky, he is one of those characters that like to play with his guests, if you will. My first favorite character, obviously, King Grimbold. I mean, I love how he's this Jamaican sounding voice, and that he's an ally sometimes to Janine, but he's the enemy in other times. Then my third favorite characters, it's a three-way tie. I love these three characters because they're very consistent, and that they pretty much don't evolve throughout the story. So and I love their voices too. So the three-way ties is between Sister Mary Ursula, Feridonia, and of course Queen Adriana. I just love how they're always with their disdain or their views on the world never changes. So this one, instead of writing 6 sentences, I want you to reading log 19. The first 3 sentences is just describing Xenos' dad. Okay, we're gonna have fun today. Okay, chapter 28, Xenos' dad. Actually, Aldemore was very sure-footed, and if we didn't make as good time as I had with the horse I'd ridden last night, we made better time than I would have walking. Let me know when you get tired, I told him. He threw his head and whined. We rode through Fairfield at a time my subconscious insisted was between mid-afternoon and vespers, though I would have called it somewhere around 5:30 on a summer morning or afternoon. For a blind guy, Aldemore was certainly good about landmarks. Periodically, he would return to his shape and say something like, "We should be coming upon a pond ahead and to our right," and "We're going to be going through some scraggly trees, but there's a meadow beyond," and "As soon as we reach the stream, we'll turn to travel into the sun." "Have you been here before?" I asked. "No," he answered. "I saw it all in my scrying glass." It took about an hour beyond Fairfield before Aldemore said, "The house is on a hill after the lightning-struck elm. It isn't," he added, "much of a hill." Now remember that lightning-struck elm. Write it down in your notes. It's important later on in our story. And there it was, a neat little house with a little garden around it, all on top of a grass-covered hill. Reverting to human shape, Aldemore put his hands to the small of his back and stretched. "Does it look promising?" he asked. Hard to say. I turned him so he was facing the right direction. The hill was about 15 or 20 feet tall, steeply inclined except in front of the house where it sloped more gently, and there was a flagstone walk. "There's a path," I told Aldemore. "Lead on." I took one step into the walk, but I couldn't take a second. I could lift my foot up, but I couldn't put it down. I felt like a mime walking into a giant wind. Something I couldn't see was keeping me from moving my foot forward. "Princess Janine," Aldemore said, "there appears to be something in my way." "There appears to be something in my way, too, but I can't see what it is," I said. "Drat, has it gotten to be night already?" Aldemore asked. "No, I can see perfectly well, but when I try to move my foot, I still couldn't move it forward. I tried one side, and then I tried the other. Oh, here we go." I took another step forward, but then I was blocked again. "No, wait," I said. I looked down at the walk, and each flagstone was big enough to accommodate a person's foot. There was various patterns, set in what appeared to be a random pattern, various colors. A heathery blue, rose, gray, black, and cream. I was currently standing on a rose-colored stone, and the stone behind me was rose too. The one directly behind that was cream, and the one I had crossed over was another rose. I took a step to the left onto another rose stone. I think this is a color-coded path, I said. Lucky me, Aldemore said. There wasn't another rose touching the one I was on, but there was one two over. I stretched my leg and, I lost my place. I stretched my leg and stepped onto the new stone. It seems, I said, as though we can only step on the rose-colored stones. But then I looked back and saw that he was on a gray one. Or maybe not. Aldemore, can you take a step, not exactly to your right, but halfway between forward and right? He did, and he was able to move. I revised my analysis of the situation. It seems as though whatever stone we step on first, after that, it's the only what color we can step on. Aldemore went back to his original stone, then backed off the path entirely. I'm going to let you handle this, he said. Okay. I made my way more or less forward for about a dozen easy steps. The path even let me jump over 3 stones to get to the rose one. But when I tried to leap over 4 stones, I was bounced back as though a rubber band attached me to the previous rose-colored stone. There were no other rose ones left to step on from where I was, so I had to back up and find my way back down another path. After following that for a bit, I once again came to a place from which I couldn't step or jump to another rose stone. From where I was, I looked toward the doorway of the house, and all the stones near the stoop, were cream, black, or gray. No wonder I wasn't getting anywhere on a rose-colored path. I made my way back to the start. Aldemore was sitting on the lawn. Back already? Did you get that? Not yet, I told him, and started again, this time using only gray stones. But no matter how I tried, there was one stretch I couldn't get beyond, where there were too many rose, cream, blue, or black stones in between the grays. And again, Aldemore turned his face expectantly in my direction. I'm trying the cream ones now, I explained before he could ask. What was it with Rasmussen's people and mazes? But this time, eventually I made it to the front stoop. I'll be back as soon as I can, I called to Aldemore. He waved cheerily. I knocked on the door, and a little boy answered. I realized I didn't know Xenos' father's name, so I was left to say, I'm looking for Xenos' dad. That's me, the kid said. He looked to be about 5. No, not Xenos' child, I said, creepy as that idea was. Xenos' father? That's me, he repeated. Cute, like when people let their toddlers record the message for their answering machines. Yeah, I hate that too. Is there an adult home? I said. Look, honey, the kid said, if I gotta tell you one more time, I'm gonna slam the door in your face and go back to smoking my cigar in peace. Xenos' dad? That's me. He was holding a cigar in his pudgy little hand, I noticed. Okay, I'm sorry. You took me by surprise. Xenos said go to his father. That would be you, I see now. To get the hat that allows the wearer to step out of the time stream. Or was it step into the time stream? I try to remember what Xenos actually had said. Something like that. It doesn't stop time, but it makes you seem as though time has stopped to an amateur. Honey, you've got to learn to stop dithering. I know what hat you mean. He held the door open for me, and I stepped into the tidy hallway. There was a hat rack with an assortment of hats on it, and I was already sure that I was going to get the ugly pink faux fur one, with the rhinestones and the ratty peacock feather hanging out. Stand here, Xenos' father said. He pointed to a spot where there was a big red X on the floor. Why? I asked suspiciously. I'm bored. Humor me. I stood on the center of the red X. Now, I'm going to ask you 3 riddles. If you answer them correctly, I'll give you the hat. And if I don't answer them correctly, I guess that coat rack is going to come over here and beat me to death. Xenos' father shook his head in obvious distaste. You have a healthy imagination. Unhealthy imagination, young lady. Anybody ever tell you that? No, if you don't answer correctly, you get another chance. Just one chance? I asked. As many as you want. My suspicion must have showed on my face. Listen, I'm an old man. Despite his parents, Xenos' father said. Nobody ever comes to visit me. Everybody comes because they need to pick something Xenos promised them. He gave me a baby tooth grin. Humor me, he said again. Well, I could just give him the ring and demand a hat, but what if I needed this ring later? All right. What's the first riddle? The first riddle is this. You see those woods outside this window? I nodded. That wasn't part of the riddle, Xenos' father explained. Yeah, I already guessed that, I said. Gee, kids today. Anyway, you see those woods. My question is this. How far can you walk into those woods? I had no real sense of where I was, much less how big those woods were. And what did he mean? How far could I walk into those woods? Was there something blocking the way? A river or a cliff? Something or someone dangerous? Or did he mean how far I could walk before I tired out? Or how far in one day? I decided it was time to clarify the rules. I don't have one guess? Xenos' father smacked his palm against his forehead. If I was a stickler, I would call that your answer. Once a riddle is asked, you aren't supposed to say anything except the answer to the riddle. Haven't you ever done this before? You're lucky I'm a patient man, and already I told you, you can try as many times as you want. Now, how far can you walk into those woods? Now, students, if you think you know the answer, write it down. It's one of your reading log sentences. Anything I would say would be just a guess. So remembering my boots, I answered, 7 leagues? Ooh! The floor opened under me, and I went flying down this fastest, slickest slide I've ever been on, through a black tunnel, and popped out of a hole on the bottom of the far side of the hill on the house stood on. Several of the catacomb ghosts had been caught at the same time I was and made the trip down with me. They liked it, I could tell, picking up their excited psychic energy. They didn't have to worry, though, about concussions or contusions. I rubbed my bruised elbows and said the kind of words my grandmother grounds me for. Shakily, I got to my feet and walked back around the front of the house. Aldemar asked, "Got that?" "Not yet. Xenos' father likes riddles. He wants to know about these woods here. Do you have any idea how big they are?" "Square acreage?" Aldemar said, and I realized he would be no help at all, because the woods could be long and skinny, or square, or who know what shape. "Do you want me to check my scrying glass?" "No." "What exactly did he say?" "He said, how far can you walk into those woods? And the trouble is, I don't know those woods." "The trouble is," Aldemar corrected me, "he's not asking you a question, dearie. He's asking you a riddle." I thought about it and groaned. I went back to the flagstone path and once more picked my way, using only the cream-colored stones to the front stoop. It was faster this time than last, and I still had several dead ends and reversals. I banged on the door. Xenos' father opened it. "Hello! Care to play a riddle game?" I followed him indoors, and he once again positioned me on the red X. Looking satisfied with himself, Xenos' father once more said, "The first riddle is this. How far can you walk into those woods?" "Halfway," I answered. And after that, I'd be walking out of the woods, not into them. "Very good," Xenos' father cried. "See, you aren't hopeless at all." "All right, the second riddle is this. Two great armies are about to do battle. The great army of the north and the great army of the south. They meet exactly on the equator. After the battle is over, the bodies are too mangled to identify. Where do you bury the survivors?" If you think you know the answer, make it another sentence. "Well," I said, "but which army won the battle?" Ah! Too late, I remembered his warning that I wasn't supposed to say anything except the answer to the riddle. The floor disappeared from under me. I tried to grab for the edge, but I was already going down that slide so fast it felt as though my butt was about to catch on fire. This time, I could definitely hear the whisper ghostly, "Whee!" After I hit the ground and the dizziness passed, I went back around the front of the hill. Aldemar was sitting on the lawn, trying to make music with a blade of grass, and I said to him, "Two armies meet on the equator and fight a great battle. After it's over, where..." I sighed, having caught up with myself. Never mind. The ghost could have told me that one. Once again, I picked my way up to the front walk and knocked on Xenos' father's door. I was beginning to get faster at this. "Are you enjoying yourself?" I asked. "Immensely," he admitted. He stood me again on the great red X and said the long story again. "The second riddle is this. Two great armies meet on the equator. The great army of the north and the great army of the South. The bodies are too mangled to identify. Where do you bury the survivors? I said, survivors don't get buried. Xenos' father gave a great drag on his cigar. I haven't had this much fun since Xenos had a cold and was sneezing up centipedes. All right, here's the third riddle. Where was Moses when the lights went out? So if you know the answer to that one, write it down. That one I knew. In the dark. There, see? Xenos' father said. I don't know what you were worried about. I said, those riddles were hardly the quality of the riddle of the Sphinx. Xenos' father shrugged. Egyptian humor. Personally, I don't get it. Now for your hat. Sure enough, he reached into that awful pink one, but then he reached into the crown of the hat and pulled out another, a crumpled knitted ski cap, the color of March slush. So I'm assuming that Xenos told you all about this. Don't bother answering. That is known as in the business as sarcasm, dearie. The hat lets you keep moving when all about you is still. That's part he told you, I'm sure. What he probably left out is that once you put on the hat on, whatever you're doing, whether it's stealing money out of the poor box at church, or spying on a boyfriend when he's out without you, or sneaking back into the house so your parents don't know you climbed into the bedroom window. Those are pretty lame reasons to be using a hat that lets you avoid the time stream, I interrupted. Hey, do I criticize you when you're giving examples? All I'm saying is that whatever you're doing, you only have a limited time to do it. Ironic, isn't it? Get it? Time. You don't get it. I get it. How long do I have? If you count like this, he said at a leisurely pace. 1 Rasmussen Enterprises, 2 Rasmussen Enterprises, 3 Rasmussen Enterprises. And then you get to 300 Rasmussen Enterprises, the hat comes back here. Nothing like a little blatant self-endorsement. And what was he saying that I had? And what he was saying was that I had 5 minutes. 5 minutes? The hat, I said, comes back here, he finished. With me? He shook his head. Leaving me? With your hand in the poor box, or your face pressed up to somebody's window, or climbing up the stairs to the 2nd floor while your father's sitting there watching you. Or in my case, face to face with a dragon. Yeah, Xenos' father said, taking another drag on the cigar. I didn't think he told you. Any questions? No. Yet again, the floor swallowed me, and I went skidding down the slide through the hill and out on the other side. Luckily, I managed to keep hold of the hat, but I was going to be a mass of bruises even before meeting the dragon. More and more ghosts were joining me for each ride. I picked myself off the ground and yelled up to the house, "Ever wonder why nobody comes to visit you?" Still staggering, I rejoined Aldmore. Got it, I told him, and he had the decency not to say, about time. So welcome to Xenos' Dad. Isn't he great?